got a couple of sections left for Chapter 5. And on Section 5.5, we're going to talk about function operations. And the big thing that you have to understand here is we're just changing the notation. Instead of saying y equals 2x, that's an equation. It's a linear equation. But instead of having an equation like that, we're just changing it so that it's in function notation. The only thing that changes is the y drops out, and we now say f of x equals 2x. Okay, f of x equals 2x. That's function notation. So it says operations. It means the operations in math are to add, subtract, multiply, and divide. Those are the operations. And we can add functions, we can subtract functions, we can multiply functions, and we can divide functions. We can apply all of those operations. And all we do, for example, is it says if f of x, there's one function, is equal to 2x by itself, and then I have a second function which is titled g of x is equal to x plus 1. So I've got two different functions that I'm going to work with here. One is an f of x and the other is a g of x. And the f and the g are changing because each function has a different name. Okay, so when we add, when we go ahead and we add two functions together, we're just taking the f of x and adding it to g of x. So you can say the f of x is the 2x, that's what I'm replacing f of x with, and the g of x function is the x plus 1. I'm just taking the two functions and I'm adding them together. And then we look at that and say, okay, are there any terms that we can combine? Do we have like terms? And we do. We have a 2x plus x, so we get 3x. And we have a 1. So the new function, and we'll call the new function h of x, we got to pick a different letter. The new function h of x is just equal to 3x plus 1. Okay, we can go ahead and we can subtract. Okay, when we subtract functions, it says f of x minus g of x. Since f of x is first, we have to list that function first. And then when we subtract g of x, we are subtracting all of it. And since there's more than one term in g of x, I've got to use parentheses because I want all of it to be subtracted, not just the first term. So I have to apply that negative. So 2x minus x is just a single x, and a minus a 1 is a minus 1. Okay, so my h of x function is going to be x minus 1. Okay, we can multiply functions together. Okay, we're going to take f of x and multiply it times g of x. So here's my f of x function again, just 2x. And my g of x function is an x plus 1. How do I multiply those together? Well, I just have to distribute here. Okay, so I'm going to take 2x and I'm going to distribute. So 2x times x is a 2x squared. And 2x times 1 is 2x. And then lastly, we can divide with functions. So if h of x is going to be f of x divided by g of x, I take my f of x function, which is my 2x, that's in the numerator, and I'm dividing it by my g of x, so that's in the denominator. And I would just say 2x over x plus 1. And there's two areas where we have to be concerned. One is that we can still not have, since this is division, we can still not have 0 in the bottom of a fraction. So we have to restrict the domain and say that x cannot equal negative 1. Okay, they got some notes here that you might want to read through. It says the domain of h, so the new function that you get after you add, subtract, multiply, or divide, the domain is going to consist of the x values that are in the domains of the functions that you added, subtracted, multiplied, or divided. It's going to be the same domain. Additionally, the domain of a quotient does not include x values for which g of x equals 0. So in other words, we can't have 0 in the bottom of the fraction. The two areas that you have to be concerned with is if you have division involved, you do not want to be dividing by 0, so we would restrict the domain so that doesn't happen. And then also, taking the even root of a negative number. So if a function has a radical involved in it, like we're taking the square root of something, if you're trying to take the square root of f of x, well, if f of x happened to be negative, we can't take the square root of a negative value. So we would have to restrict the domain there. Okay, so you're going to get a chance to try some of these operations. So in your note packet, go ahead and work these out. Here's my f of x function. It's 3x plus 4. That's going to represent your f of x. And your g of x is represented by this x squared minus 5x plus 2. So it says I want to add the two functions together. So I'm going to take f of x first. That's 3x plus 4. Okay, and I want to add, okay, the g of x to it. Okay, the g of x is the x squared minus 5x plus 2. So here's the f of x function, here's the g of x function. I want to add those together. To do that, you need to combine like terms. Okay, my new function is called h of x. It's going to equal, well, I'm going to take my squared term first. I'm going to write things in descending order. Here's some like terms. 3x minus 5x would be a negative 2x. 4 plus 2 would be positive 6. So when I add those two functions together, I get x squared minus 2x plus 6. No restrictions on the domain there because I don't have a fraction. Okay, if I want to subtract the two functions, okay, when you deal with subtraction, like always, order matters with subtraction. So you have to start with the f of x function, which is 3x plus 4. Okay, and then we're going to subtract, and I want to subtract the g of x function. So that's going to be x squared minus 5x plus 2. Now, if I don't put it in parentheses, then I only end up subtracting the first term. But I want to subtract all of it. So I have to put it in parentheses when I subtract. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and apply that negative. So I'm going to make that plus, but then I've got to change the signs inside. So you're subtracting all three pieces. And then I'm going to find my like terms. So my new function, or my h of x function, is going to equal, well, I've got a negative x squared. 3x plus 5x now is going to be 8x. 4 plus a negative 2 is a positive 2. So when I subtract those two functions, that's what I get for a function. Okay, let's try that again. Okay, you got new functions to deal with. So we're going to say f of x is now this, 2x squared plus 7x minus 1. And g of x is this 3 minus 2x. Okay, I want to add those two functions together. So I'm going to start with f of x, and I'm going to say 2x squared plus 7x minus 1. That's the f of x. I'm going to add it to the g of x. So plus, it's going to be 3 minus 2x. And all I'm doing is combining my like terms. So my new function, or h of x, is equal to, I've got a 2x squared. I have a 7x minus a 2x. That would be 5x. And negative 1 plus 3 would be a positive 2. Okay, and try example B here. Go ahead and pause your video and try example B and see what you get. Okay, you should be getting okay, I think you should get h of x is equal to 2x squared plus 9x minus 4. Okay, now we're going to do some multiplying. At the bottom here, example 3. Changing our functions again. So we've got, here's my f of x function, and here's my g of x function, and they want us to multiply. So f of x comes first, so I'm going to put that in parentheses first. Because I'm multiplying, I'm using parentheses. And I'm going to take it times the g of x. Okay, how do you do that? In order to do that, I'm just going to have to distribute here.
Davy and Needles, please come to the main office.
Okay, we're going to end up taking x times all of that. So I would get a negative 2x cubed minus 13x squared. Okay, and then minus 7x. And then I'm going to take the negative 7 and do the same thing. I'm going to distribute it. So I get a positive 14x squared, a positive 91x, and a positive 49. So I just end up distributing twice. And now I need to combine my like terms here. So I'm going to change colors here so I think you can see this better. But I'm going to say h of x equals, okay, I've got a cubed term here, negative 2x cubed. I've got a couple of squared terms, negative 13x squared plus 14x squared would be a plus 1x squared. The negative 7x plus 91, that's going to be a positive 84x, and then plus 49. So you're just going to combine your like terms after you go through the multiplication. Okay, and then lastly here you've got some division. So f of f divided by g. Notice that f is in the numerator. It's very important that you put these in the right order. So I'm going to say x minus 7 over negative 2x squared minus 13x minus 7. Okay, that's what we're going to start with. And I'm going to end this video, and on the next video we'll talk about how we simplify with division. Okay, but you can do the addition and the subtraction questions that I have for you, and you can even, I think, multiplication is probably pretty easy for you too. But give that a shot.